Today on a Hamster and Gretel episode of the Danville Discussion.
Mortals! I am the Destructress. Hashtag the Destructress.
And you could call me Fist Puncher.
I'm not calling you that. It doesn't even make sense. Are you punching a fist?
Whatever, I just want to punch stuff.
I can't believe we shared DNA.
I hate sharing things.
Hey, Evil fans, you may be asking, why are we at the docks?
Who would ask that?
We're here because we're wrecking this dock crane, so our debut will make a big splash.
Ah, because water.
Thank you for taking the figurative and making it literal. I'm literally dying of embarrassment.
Everybody, and welcome to the Danville Discussion, a podcast about all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. My name is Caleb Dirksen, and some of you may know me from my YouTube channel of the same name, home of some web series related to animation such as Caleb Reviews. If this is your first time for the Danville Discussion, well, the title should explain it all. It's a podcast where I sit through each episode of either Phineas and Ferb or Hamster and Gretel, searching for all the cultural and in-universe references, plus some fun facts, some musical numbers, anything I can find, and then finally I will end things off by giving each episode a roller coaster rating. So, for this episode, I'm going to look into episode 3 of Hamster and Gretel, which features the segments Superhero Sibling Rivalry and Close Shave. If you want to check out more episodes of the Danville Discussion, then head to anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion website on Anchor. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions you may have about this episode by emailing us at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the series and episode title in the subject line. So, first things first, we're going to be looking at when this full half hour first premiered. Of course, this episode was first released early to Disney Plus on August 17th, 2022, and then it officially aired on Disney Channel 3 days later on August 20th. It was one of the 3 episodes that were released on Disney Plus for early access. Now, our first segment for this is Superhero Sibling Rivalry. And Superhero Sibling Rivalry was written by Joshua Pruitt. It was storyboarded by Alan Delmar Oka and Heather Gregerson, and it was directed by Amber Tornquist Hollinger. The episode starts on Monday when Hamster, Gretel, and Kevin are chasing a speeding villain who apparently committed a bank robbery, and as this happens, Gretel is being told by Kevin that she has to do the dishes, even though she says she did them last night, but Kevin says that letting the dog lick the scraps doesn't count. Gretel remembers Snow White doing something like that, though Kevin says that Snow White doesn't have a choreboard, and the speeding bank-robbing villain, who is played by Carolina Ravassa, the same actress who also does Carolina Grant Gomez, she tells the siblings to always follow the choreboard, but then they tell her to stay out of this.
What do you mean I have to do the dishes? I did the dishes last night.
Letting the dog lick off the scraps is not doing the dishes.
That's how Snow White does it.
Snow White doesn't have a choreboard.
Always follow the choreboard.
Stay out of this!
And that's the first cultural reference I found. This first scene has a reference to the 1937 Disney animated feature Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was based on the original fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, and was also the first feature film that Disney had ever made, and the first American animated feature. Because during the whistle while you work sequence, Snow White does have a bunch of forest animals help her out to clean the dwarf's cottage, including washing the dishes. Then on Tuesday, there's this army of evil animal robots that are wreaking havoc on the zoo. The gorilla throws a popcorn stand toward Gretel, and as Gretel dodges and ties the robots up, she tells Kevin that she isn't always late and that he's always early, but Kevin doesn't understand it, saying it doesn't make any sense. Gretel talks back to him that his face doesn't make any sense, but the elephant robot interrupts, along with the villain responsible for unleashing the animal robots, Anima infamous Machina, voiced by Brock Powell, and the siblings tell him to stay out of this.
I'm not always late. You're always early.
That doesn't make any sense.
Your face doesn't make any sense.
Hello? Evil villain here?
Stay out of this.
On Wednesday, Kevin and Gretel are at the drive-thru of a Slushy Burger restaurant. And by the way, that's the big in-universe reference I spotted. The Slushy Burger chain and its spin-off Mr. Slushy Dog are from Phineas and Ferb. It's the restaurant chain where Jeremy Johnson works, and Candace goes to see him whenever he would be working there. This is also not the first time a Slushy Burger restaurant has appeared in a Dan Povenmire project outside of that show, since in the Milo Murphy's Law episode Managing Murphy's Law, Cavendish and Dakota are at the drive-thru of a Mr. Slushy Dog location, and Jeremy is speaking through the intercom, voiced again by Mitchell Musso.
What were we doing?
Wait, were these rappers here the whole time?
Smells fresh.
Oh, yes, that's it. We were supposed to meet one Jeremy Johnson here at, 10 minutes ago? What have we been doing for those 10 minutes?
Well, let's pull over to the drive-thru and try to find out.
Welcome to Slushy Dog. May I take your order, please?
I don't know if you can take my order, but you can borrow it.
Dakota? Did you get rid of that thing?
What thing?
It's me, Jeremy. We just met, like 10 minutes ago. You know about the weird glowing junk by the dumpster? It seemed to be making people act strange. We already talked about this.
In the minivan, Gretel and Kevin continue arguing over a burger, which Gretel wanted from a taco place instead of the Slushy Burger. Kevin says that Gretel is impossible, and the latter talks back saying his face is impossible. Then that one skeleton villain, who looks a lot like the Grim Reaper, asks for the two to just take her to jail as she's all tied up, and they tell her to stay out of this.
I said I want a burger.
This is the burger place.
I want the burger from the taco place.
You're impossible.
Your face is impossible.
Just take me to jail already.
Stay out of this.
These opening scenes gave me some laughs. And this takes us to the present moment where after a week of seemingly endless bickering, including where Gretel and Kevin argue over the TV remote, Carolina tells the two that they need a break from each other and takes the remote upstairs with her. Kevin declares that because he's older, he is correct about everything that he says, and after more arguing, he rants out that Gretel has been his nemesis his whole life, and that because she's younger, she should listen to her elders, and then Gretel says that she'll listen to her mom, thinking she's right that they do need a break, and they accept it through various synonyms, with Gretel willing to save the day by herself alone, but Hamster corrects her by including himself. I just love this argument between them.
Okay, I'm older, so that means I'm right. Settled.
What?
You need to do what I say. I've got a lot on my plate. Being a big brother and your superhero coach guy person.
Newsflash. I've gotta, save the world every afternoon and do homework.
Oh, and I'm not there helping whenever you do that? Every day? All the time?
Anyone can drive a minivan.
What? You know what? You're my nemesis!
Nemesis?
You've been my nemesis my whole life.
You're older than me. How could I be your nemesis before I was even born?
Exactly. You're younger, so you should listen to your elders.
Fine then. I'll listen. To Mom. Maybe she's right. Maybe we do need a break.
Fine.
Good.
Great.
Peachy.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Stupendous.
Phenomenal.
Outstanding.
Spectacular.
Marvelous.
Amazing.
Super.
I'm out of synonyms, but we should take a break.
Yeah. Next time the city's in trouble, I'll handle it by myself. Alone. With Hamster.
Yeah, good. Good idea.
Then there's this hilarious gag from Hamster where he says that Sibling Rivalry is the only competition no one can win, but it turns out that it's a note from his fortune cookie, and Hamster doesn't know if it would apply to the kids, and he eats the fortune cookie.
Sibling Rivalry is the only competition no one can win. Oh, it's just my fortune cookie. Probably doesn't apply to you guys.
When the alarm sounds off on Kevin's phone that there are two supervillains terrorizing the docks, Hamster and Gretel depart to stop them, and Gretel tells Kevin to enjoy his day off, while Kevin decides to go to the mall with Fred, with some more funny moments I like.
Two supervillains terrorizing the docks. Gretel!
We got this. Enjoy your day off.
No, yeah, I will. It's fine. I just won't help this time. And yeah, I'm super pumped.
Has anyone seen the remote?
I'm going to the mall like a normal teenager. How exhilarating to walk through a large shop filled with smaller shops.
Kids are a lot.
The two supervillains turn out to be the Destructress and Fist Puncher, who are the twins that first appear getting their evil powers at the end of Okie Dokie, both played by Allison Stoner and Brock Powell respectively. They introduce themselves through a Facebook-style post, and when Fist Puncher introduces himself, the Destructress doesn't want to call him that, saying it doesn't make sense. After Fist Puncher says he just wants to punch stuff, the Destructress can't believe they both share DNA, and FP says he hates sharing things. This might be in the top 3 in terms of my favorite moments of this episode. The Destructress then starts a live stream talking with her evil fans about why they're at the docks, and Fist Puncher questions, who would ask that? The reason they're here is because they're wrecking the dock crane so that their debut will make a big splash, because water. This leads to the Destructress to blame FP for making the figurative literal and embarrassing her on her livestream. I like that part as well. Another bit that comes up that I laughed at is when Lyle is tossing boats around, yet almost hits Lauren, and by the way, Lyle and Lauren are Fist Puncher and the Destructress's real names. And one of the boats becomes a free boat for the construction workers to ride on. Another boat he throws is flying toward a building with business people inside, listing some attacks in an evacuation manual, but Hamster and Gretel stop the boat from crashing into the building, and one of the business people claims it's because of the manual. I love that part too.
We'll do a deep dive.
Oh
into
no,
this
a boat!
indeed.
We gotta get out of here!
Now hold on, everyone. We've got a procedure for this. Let's check the evacuation manual. Avalanche, bear attack, bee attack.
Can you hurry up?
Do you want to do this fast, or do you want to do it right? Oh, no, I lost my place. Okay, let's start over. Avalanche, bear attack.
We're saved!
Thanks to the manual.
Hamster and Gretel introduce themselves to the villain twins, and they declare that they'll be taking them to jail today. After taking a picture with the live stream going on, the Destructress states that when the twins defeat the heroes, they'll be stealing their followers. And next up is another one of my favorite moments, where Fist Puncher claims that he punches the rules, and he flat out goes ahead toward a no fishing sign, and punches the no out of the sign, which results in a bunch of fishermen to come on by with their fishing rods.
Hi, my name is Gretel. This is my hamster, and we'll be taking you to jail today.
Hamster and Gretel! Oh my gosh, this will be the perfect collab. You're famous!
We are?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? When we defeat you, your followers will become our followers. I don't make the rules.
And I punched them!
You punched the rules.
Yeah, like if they're on a sign. No fishing!
Yes, fishing again!
Tackle box time.
Meanwhile, Kevin is walking with Fred through the mall, and he would much rather be there than at the docks, and Fred is like, me thinks that Kevin doth protest too much. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Look, I get to be a normal teenager, walking through a large shop, filled with smaller shops. I love all these windows filled with merchandise. I'd much rather be here than at the docks, making a difference.
Methinks that Kevin doth protest too much.
However, Kevin is unable to enjoy his time there due to continually worrying about Gretel, and while the heroes continue to fight the twins, Kevin and Fred are at the food court with some cinnamon buns, and another favorite of mine is when Fred rolls her eyes slowly at Kevin.
Dude, it's so obvious you don't want to be here.
What? There's no place I'd rather be than here, with you, at this restaurant filled with smaller restaurants. Nothing I'd rather be doing.
Cough, cough. I'm rolling my eyes at you, and you're missing it. I'm super good at it, watch. Roll.
Meanwhile, as Hamster and Gretel are still fighting, there's the part where Hamster is staying still as he goes through the crane, which is supposed to hit him, and Fist Puncher questions why nothing perforated hits him, and it's obviously because he's a really small household pet.
How come nothing perforated hits you?
At first, Hamster and Gretel have an easy time with the villains, but they incapacitate the heroes by trapping them under a large pile of heavy objects and vehicles, and before they do, they announce a grand slam, but Fist Puncher mistakes it for a grand piano, which too got a laugh out of me.
Come on, Lyle. Face is loaded. It's
time for a grand...
Piano!
No, not piano. Slam. Grand slam. Why would you think I was about to say piano?
I don't know.
Just hit them.
Gretel calls Kevin to tell him about the situation, and he rushes down to the scene, and before it transitions, I can relate to Fred, who is eating a cinnamon bun, when she says that being right all the time really does burn up a lot of calories.
So, what does she want?
You shush. Hey, Gretel Beans, your brother's being your brother. You good?
Fred! I'm totally fine and definitely handling this by myself, but if you could tell Kevin, that maybe possibly I'm trapped under 200 tons of shipyard junk with no way out. That would be cool, thanks!
200 tons? But they can only lift 157 tons between them. Gretel, I'm on my way!
Thanks, please hurry, okay, bye!
Being right all the time really does burn up a lot of calories.
Once Kevin arrives, he witnesses the Destructress and Fist Puncher arguing with each other, and I think this part that I'm about to play might possibly be my favorite joke from this episode, which is Kevin getting to know the villains' names with the Destructress correcting him that her name is the Destructress.
I'm stronger and smarter.
No, you're not. I am all of the things.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've heard of you guys. You're,
Fist puncher.
Right. Fist puncher and,
The Destructress.
Right. Destructress.
The Destructress.
Of course, yeah. Heard you guys are just so cool and famous.
Kevin goes on recalling from earlier that a wise rodent, that being Hamster, once said, "Sibling rivalry is the only competition no one can win." That is, unless there's a contest. And so Kevin uses the twins' argument to his advantage by tricking them into lifting the objects off of Hamster and Gretel, disguising it as a game show called How Much Can You Lift? And this game show comes complete with a theme song where this marching band shows up behind Kevin to play the song while Kevin sings.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to How Much Can You Lift? If you irritate your sibling cause you both are so competitive, if the bickering and quibbling is just getting too repetitive, you can't wait any longer, you gotta know which one is stronger, just play How Much Can You Lift? If you wanna find a winner, how much can you lift? And still be home in time for dinner.
I think this song is pretty much on the same level as the theme song of Let's Take a Quiz from Phineas and Ferb in terms of how catchy it is, and the message that you and your sibling can settle your competition by playing How Much Can You Lift? There are also a few cultural references I discovered in this sequence. First is that one-shot displays spinning frames showing Fist Puncher, the Destructress, and Kevin. This is a reference to the opening sequence of Match Game when the panelists are introduced.
Get ready to match the stars. Michael Landon, Vicki Lawrence, Jack Klugman, Joanne Flug, Richard Dawson, Anita Gillette, as we play the star-studded Big Money Match Game 73. And here's the host of Match Game 73, Gene Revern.
Next, one shot of Fist Puncher shows 4 answer panels with 2 panels in 2 rows with the words How Much Can You and Lift in each of the 4 panels. And these panels bear a lot of similarity to the choice panels shown during a question in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And finally, I didn't know if I discovered this before, but each of the 5 words are displayed in 5 panels, with 2 in the first 2 rows and 1 long one below them on a board, and the Destructress and Fist Puncher are standing at a podium and they press their buttons to find out who answers first. I think this is a reference to Family Feud, where the top answers are displayed on the board and 2 people from their respective families or teams stand at a podium and press the button to see who answers first.
Guys, here we go. Top 6 answers on the board. Name something warm you like to hold on a cold day. Vince.
Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk.
And I should know because I have watched plenty of Family Feud before, mostly from the current era with Steve Harvey. After the song ends, the Destructress starts by throwing a girder and it heads toward the same building from earlier. This time it crashes through the window and swipes the manual out of the man's hands, and this one made me chuckle.
Oh no, a girder!
It's okay, we have the manual. Great, now we'll never know what we're supposed to do.
Next, Fist Puncher lifts a tugboat, then the Destructress lifts a yacht, and they continue lifting things off of Hamster and Gretel while arguing until the heroes are free, and this then allows Hamster and Gretel to defeat the villains with an actual grand piano, trapping the twins under the same heavy objects that our heroes were trapped under earlier.
And now our next contestant, audience.
I bet your Fist Puncher can't lift that tugboat.
I don't know, folks. Looks pretty big.
No problem!
Oh yeah? Well, I can lift this yacht.
And I can lift this barge!
You've lost, losing loser.
I am faster and stronger!
I'm faster and stronger plus one.
I am faster and stronger plus one and infinity divided by two. So who's the winner, kid?
Well, it looks like this game is over, so it's time for a grand
Piano!
Well, I was gonna say grand finale, but that works too.
Gretel tells Kevin that the pianos came from the cargo ship, and they also had a harp, and Hamster plays the harp, which Kevin didn't know before.
Where'd you get the pianos?
Cargo ship. They also had a harp.
I had no idea he played.
The Destructress finds out that she and Fist Puncher are under a 200-ton pile and that they can only lift 156 tons between them, which is a bit less than Hamster and Gretel's lifting abilities, which go up to 157 tons. This means that Hamster and Gretel are stronger than the Destructress and Fist Puncher, and these are some fun facts I discovered. As the villain twins get arrested by the police, they're wrapped up in metal pipes and being carried away by the forklift, and on the way home, Kevin and Gretel reconcile, both being glad that they do not treat each other the way the Destructress and Fist Puncher treat each other. Gretel says to Kevin that sometimes they do need a superhero coach, guy, person, which gives Kevin the idea to put that on his business cards, and then he decides to put on some tunes, but Gretel wants to pick, though Kevin is the driver, so he's the only one who gets to pick, yet Gretel wonders if she can pick the tunes if she picks up the van, and the episode ends by bringing back Hamster's fortune cookie gag, where he says to himself, "Kids are a lot." This leaves Gretel and Kevin unamused at Hamster, who then tells them that it's just his fortune cookie and it probably doesn't apply to them, and that was a hilarious and nice way to cap it all off.
How about some tunes?
I get to pick.
I'm the one driving.
What if I pick up the van? Do I get to pick then?
Kids are a lot. Oh, it's just my fortune cookie. Probably doesn't apply to you guys.
Like, you know what? That fortune cookie gag with Hamster might be tied up there as my favorite moment in this episode. Now I just want to talk about Fist Puncher and the Destructress themselves. I kind of love these villains. I personally think they might be my favorite villains in the show so far. I like how the Destructress is portrayed as the brains and the snob of the duo, and Fist Puncher is portrayed as the brawn with his hippie personality, like totally radical. And their humor in this episode is kinda neat too, with their arguing and the Destructress's obsession with live streaming the chaos and taking pictures of herself, and Fist Puncher just punching whatever he wants. Finally, the thing that I usually save for last, the animation. For this segment, the animation was provided by Snipple Animation Studios, and usually when it comes to Hamster and Gretel, their animation is okay, but I have seen Synergy do better animation for the show, just like with Phineas and Ferb and Milo Murphy's Law, and I'll talk more about that when we get into the next segment. I've even seen Snipple doing some better animation for shows like the DuckTales reboot and the Animaniacs reboot, but they still tried with their involvement in the Dwampyverse, especially here. I have mentioned how the characters can move weirdly sometimes, and some parts can get choppy, but I kinda noticed that when Gretel says you punch the rules, the outlines on her mouth are a little black and thicker, and the outlines on Hamster in that same shot feel that way as well, and I don't know, it kinda feels a bit off. And when Kevin and Hiromi are walking through the mall the first time, I noticed how they can move like they were animated with Adobe Flash with those smooth tweaks and everything, and that felt weird too. But still, like always, the animators at Snipple have done their best with the materials they have. It's just that it will take time getting used to Snipple's involvement with a Dan Povenmire project, especially this show and Candace Against the Universe. But despite some animation issues, this was still a really enjoyable episode that had a lot of great humor throughout. This is one of those episodes that I'd recommend even if you're just getting started with the show. Now, when it comes to our next segment right here, I'm going to be moving on to Close Shave. And this one was written by Valerie Bryman, storyboarded by Rufino Roy Camacho II and Villamor M. Cruz, and directed by Trisha Garcia. The episode starts in the morning when Carolina asks Kevin why he chose Sigmund Freud for his book report, and he and Fred were supposed to pick someone important and controversial, and Fred picked Freud because she thinks that he needed therapy. Then Gretel asks Kevin to drive her to school early, and after they head out, Dave makes a nice little pun saying that he heard Sigmund was a Freud of the dark. But Carolina asks him about puns before 9 a.m., and Dave answers that she loves them.
I heard Sigmund was a Freud of the dark.
What did I tell you about puns before 9 a.m.?
That you love them?
Exactamente.
On the way to school, Gretel tells Kevin about her substitute teacher this week, named Mr. Chabner, whom she suspects is evil, and she gets the idea to sneak Hamster in to go undercover as the class pet for backup for if Mr. Chabner tries anything fishy. The reason she believes that ideology is that Mr. Chabner has one of those evil half-beardy things, which is called a goatee, and she's having one of her hero hunches. But Kevin does not believe Gretel due to the previous times her hunches turned out to be false and got them into trouble, like in that nice cutaway gag where the kids had to buy Miss Greenberg a new mailbox, but Gretel remains firm in her intuition. At Gretel's elementary school, Gretel makes sure the coast is clear and puts Hamster in the cage, which used to belong to their class mouse Skippy, who died when he was eaten by the class snake. Mr. Chabner, voiced by TikTok sensation Casey Hamilton, comes in and Gretel is skeptical about his true intentions. She even wonders if Mr. Chabner is even this villain's real name.
Hey there, it's Gretel, right?
Maybe. Maybe not. What's with all the questions, Mr. Chabner? If that is in fact your real name.
It is?
Says you.
We then go across to Kevin and Fred's high school, and this episode reveals that Gretel and Bailey's elementary school and Kevin and Fred's high school are across the street from one another. Over there, Kevin and Fred are bringing in their Sigmund Freud project. Kevin claims that Gretel would think Freud is evil because of his beard, and Fred states she has issues with sideburns herself. When they sit down, Kevin shows Fred a beard he's growing and wonders if maybe that makes him evil, and we see a short strand of facial hair on his chin, but Fred attempts to use hair removal spray on it until it gets interrupted by a call from Gretel, who tells Kevin that Mr. Chabner is about to do something evil any minute, but he's doing nothing right now. Kevin still doesn't believe Gretel because her hunches have destroyed a mailbox, a gazebo, and 3 of the neighbors' cars.
It's a beard. It's just patchy.
I've got some hair removal spray. I can take care of that.
Stay back!
Kevin, my substitute teacher is about to do something evil any minute.
Really? What's he doing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Exactly. But I know he's about to do something. Why don't you believe me?
Because your hunches have destroyed a mailbox, a gazebo, and 3 of our neighbors' cars.
I gotta go.
After the call ends, Fred says, so that's what happened to the gazebo. And it goes to the hero transition where a broken, burning gazebo is zooming in and out, which just made me chuckle. During Gretel's classes, Mr. Chabner announces that he's gonna stray from the curriculum just for fun, but Gretel gets upset at that with suspicion, yet it doesn't stop the teacher because then he requests a volunteer and Bailey decides to come on up. When Bailey asks what Mr. Chabner wants her to do, he asks about her favorite exercise, which is pole vaulting, but he wants something they can do in this room, and Bailey chooses jumping jacks, with Gretel watching in suspicion. Bailey gets the whole class to stand up, and Gretel refuses because she still smells something fishy about the substitute, and the room turns dark because Gretel is having a vision of what she thinks are Mr. Chabner's true intentions, spying on a giant model of the solar system that's hanging from the ceiling over Bailey, who looks like she's stomping on the floor, which causes the rope on the model to rip apart until the model falls off, looking like it's about to hurt Bailey, but it actually lands in front of her, and Mr. Chabner laughs evilly in Gretel's vision. In real life, the same thing happens, but before the model lands, Gretel saves Bailey, but ends up accidentally pushing her against a bookshelf with books falling on her. However, the solar system model turns out to be an inflatable class project that deflates. Over at high school, Kevin and Fred's presentation is interrupted when Kevin gets another call from Gretel, and he makes up a lie to his teacher, Miss Weems, that he has to go to the bathroom, but it has to be quick. Fun fact about Miss Weems, she's voiced by Cree Summer, an actress you may know for voicing several characters including Penny in Inspector Gadget, Susie Carmichael in Rugrats, and Elmira Duff in Tiny Toon Adventures.
Freud's most important work, Miss Weems, I have to go to the bathroom.
Now? You're in the middle of a report.
When you gotta go, right?
I'll take over.
Fine, but make it quick.
Outside the classroom, Gretel tells Kevin that her hero hunch is tingling, and Kevin wonders if her headband is too tight. Gretel checks by pulling her headband, and she believes it to be so.
Gretel, are you—
Kevin, my hero hunch is tingling like crazy!
Gretel, is your headband too tight again?
Oh, I guess that was it.
Of course it was. Listen, I'm in the middle of a book report.
Gotta go.
She ends the call and gets back to her class, and Mr. Chabner comes back and gets out a box, about to give his class exactly what they deserve, but Gretel has another vision in which the teacher pulls a sci-fi ray gun out of the box and is about to zap the kids with an evil personality. But in reality, they turn out to be a bunch of cupcakes as Gretel tries to stop this villain and swipes the cupcakes out of his hands, sending them flying toward the windows. But one of the cupcakes falls off and catapults Hamster out of the cage and inside the snake. Hamster is still alive, but he ends up going to the snake's tail, and he jumps out of the cage and wrestles the snake around the classroom, then exits the snake's mouth and heads back into the cage he was in before. I like that action bit. And before Gretel says anything, Chabner asks her to stay after class. Going back to the high school, Kevin is still presenting when he receives yet another call from Gretel. And with that watch that's being displayed on the TV, I wonder if that looks like Time Ape's head in the Dr. Zone files from Milo Murphy's Law. Kevin says he has to go to the bathroom again, and Miss Weems is tired of this. Fred proceeds to continue with the presentation as Kevin exits. In the hallway, Gretel says that the evil teacher is forcing her and Hamster to stay after school, and that he says she wrecked the whole classroom and smashed up all the cupcakes that he baked for the class.
Freud often used— Miss Weems, unfortunately, I have to go to the bathroom again.
Are you kidding?
In the later half of his career, Freud continued to be wrong about many, many things.
Kevin, the evil teacher is forcing me and Hamster to stay after school.
Did something actually happen?
No, I mean, he says I wrecked up the whole classroom and smashed up all the cupcakes he baked for us.
Well, did you?
Yes, but I gotta go.
After that call and school ends for the day, Mr. Chabner lets Gretel know that she's not in trouble for what happened, that he just wants to know if things are okay with her, and Gretel admits to him that she had a hunch that he was evil, and Chabner tells her the truth that he's just a normal teacher who wants to do good things for children. Gretel apologizes to him and says that despite the goatee, he is a good guy. But then Chabner does a 180 and tricks Gretel, and he traps both of our heroes, who transform into their alter egos, and tells them his backstory, where he saw the two on TV, realizing that the superhero girl is just some normal kid out there. For 2 long boring weeks, he was a substitute teacher for elementary school classes across the city, until he ended up here with Gretel, and he recognized them because there's a kid named Gretel who has a pet hamster, and because both alter egos of Gretel are right-handed. Another backstory is that Chabner reveals that he is actually under the control of Van Dyke, a sentient mustache and goatee. Van Dyke reveals he was once a normal human scientist who couldn't grow a beard, so he tried to use a machine to combine the facial hair gene with his DNA, only to turn into a living beard and mustache by accident. This backstory was good yet funny at the same time.
Once upon a time, I was a young scientist who could not grow a beard, so I tried merging the facial hair gene with my own DNA. Finally, I will be able to grow facial hair like a normal man. Oh, crud.
He then discovered he could possess others simply by attaching to their faces. After realizing he could do this to Gretel as well, he possessed Mr. Chabner and posed as a substitute teacher until he found her and possessed her. We even have this neat little jingle sung by Danny Jacob for a gag.
Van Dyke, mind-controlling facial hair.
But despite being a song, the Van Dyke jingle was not listed among the other songs with the show's theme song, How Much Can You Lift, and Fighting Facial Hair in the credits for this episode. Hamster marks an X on a piece of floor inside the trap, and Gretel jumps on it, launching Mr. Chabner into the air, and he falls onto the button, which releases the trap. Hamster and Gretel escape the trap and battle Van Dyke, which eventually catches the attention of Kevin and Fred as the song Fighting Facial Hair plays in the background. A pretty fun and catchy song, I gotta say.
I know you think you finally found your place, but don't get all up in my face. Better watch yourself, you better behave, or I think you're gonna get yourself a real close shave.
During the fight, Van Dyke latches onto Hamster and they continue fighting each other with trees. When Kevin goes outside to see what's happening, Gretel has no choice but to punch Hamster to free him from Van Dyke's control, complete with the attack gag of half-beard and mustache punch, which was visually creative yet again.
Sorry, Hamster. Half-beard and mustache punch!
It's called
But then Van Dyke possesses Gretel, which causes Hamster to punch her, and they both crash into a school bus, releasing Van Dyke, who then places Kevin under his control, threatening to turn him into minced meat, only for Fred to subdue him with hair removal spray, and when Fred sprays Van Dyke, I know this may be a dated meme, but I completely lost it when she said, "Okay, boomer." That might have to be my most favorite moment of this episode.
Hey, I have facial hair.
If you or your rodent try to do anything stupid, your brother is mincemeat.
Okay, Boomer, no one says mincemeat anymore.
No!
Gretel hugs Kevin for saving her, even though it was Fred who did the real saving, and Van Dyke tries to crawl across the street, but gets immediately shredded by a lawnmower off-screen, because we wouldn't want kids to actually see that, right? As the heroes and their relatives triumphantly walk home, Kevin apologizes to Gretel for not believing her and promises to trust her hero hunches, but then as the episode ends, he becomes shocked to find out that Gretel's hero hunches even ended up destroying his laptop.
And from now on, I'm gonna trust your hero hunches, Luigi. I'm sorry I didn't believe you.
Well, there was the gazebo, and the cars, and the mailbox.
Oh, stop living in the past.
And your laptop.
What? My laptop?
Throughout this segment, I like the calls between Kevin and Gretel, and sometimes I even chuckled at them, especially Kevin and Fred's lies that they have to go to the bathroom before checking on Gretel. I also thought Van Dyke was a pretty neat villain too, with some bits of nice humor and a backstory of how his experiment suddenly went haywire when he tried to grow a beard as a human scientist, plus his design as a half-beard, half-mustache figure is very creative. With the animation, looking at it, I think it was provided by both Snipple and Synergy, so here, the animation quality is not as consistent. I could tell that Snipple was part of this because sometimes the line art on the characters can get really thick, just like how the first act of Candace Against the Universe looked, and I don't know, but it just looks weird like that. Also, some of the backgrounds and the furniture have really dark, thick outlines as well, while the characters' line art can be thin, and it looks weird too. I'm not saying they look bad or anything, but Snipple's animation in this segment can look kinda bizarre. But then you have Synergy, which also played a part in this, and their animation is easily the best part of the visuals for me. There aren't that many tweens or thick outlines when it comes to them, and there are times when their animation can get smooth in a good way, such as Gretel swiping the cupcakes and the action scenes, plus I like the shading, the lighting, and the effects, including on Mr. Chabner when he pulls out the ray gun in Gretel's vision, and the effects of Van Dyke moving when he gets shredded by the lawnmower. Overall, this was a really fun episode for me. The animation isn't perfect since I think it's a blend of Snipple and Synergy in a collaboration, but the comedy was great, especially the villain, and the song was catchy, an episode I might go back to rewatching later on. Now before we end things off and we get to our Twitter poll, I would like to give this episode a roller coaster rating, and out of 10 roller coasters, how many am I going to give the 2 segments and the entire episode? Now, I'm going to give Superhero Sibling Rivalry a 9 out of 10 because it has a lot of great moments, even with some weak animation. And I'll give Close Shave 9 out of 10 as well. The animation is a bit better with Synergy also working on it, and I like everything else about it outside of that. Therefore, in total, Episode 3 of Hamster and Gretel is a 9 out of 10. Not really a perfect episode, but still a great one. And now it's time that we shall go into our Twitter poll results, which means it's our reporter's turn to take center stage.
Hello listeners, unfortunately our reporter is gone right now because he has a sore throat and he's pretty much lost his voice at this point. So for right now, I'm just gonna take over as a substitute for him. So, here are the Twitter poll results from the past few weeks. We asked our listeners, if Candace Flynn were to star in a movie with a big-name celebrity, who would she star with? Hashtag Phineas and Ferb. Hashtag Danville Discussion poll. The choices were A. Jack Black, B. Scarlett Johansson, C. Jim Carrey, D. Amy Poehler. 10% bet on Amy Poehler, 20% thought of Jim Carrey, 30% chose Scarlett Johansson, but most of all, 40% believed that Jack Black would be the top celebrity to co-star with Candace in a major Hollywood blockbuster, and I would definitely be in the audience for that when I attend its premiere at the Chinese Theater. There were 10 votes in total. Now let's go to Caleb for his choice and a brand new poll. This is the new reporter signing out.
Who would I pick out of those 4 to be in a movie with Candace after Like Candace action? Well, it's kind of a hard choice for me between Amy Poehler, Scarlett Johansson, Jack Black, and Jim Carrey, but I picked Scarlett Johansson. She was the voice of Princess Mindy in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and Ka the Snake in the 2016 Jungle Book, and she's most well known for playing Black Widow in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. but I would love for Candace to be in a movie with her as much as the other three. But anyways, now let's jump onto a new Twitter poll, this one being Hamster and Gretel related. And with the episodes I've talked about so far in this podcast, I've only seen 5 episodes with different villains, but for Twitter, I'm just going to drop it down to 4. So my question is, which of these hashtag Hamster and Gretel villains is your favorite? Hashtag Danville Discussion poll. And the picks I've chosen are A, Professor Exclamation, B, El Luchador, C, the Destructress and Fist Puncher, and D, Van Dyke. Now, if you want to find this poll, then just go to my alternate Twitter at Caleb the PNF Guy or search for hashtag Danville Discussion poll, and then you can go ahead and shout out your answer. And that is all I have for this week, so thank you for listening to this episode of the Danville Discussion. As for me, you can find me on my Facebook page at Real Caleb Dirksen, on my Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok pages at Caleb Dirksen2, that's the number 2, on my alternate Twitter page at Caleb the PNF Guy, on my Instagram pages at Caleb.Dirksen for my main page or at Caleb Flynn Fletcher for my alternate page, and on my DeviantArt page at Caleb Dirksen20. You can also find me on Discord by typing the username Caleb Dirksen, that's in 2 words, and then the code number 4600. And if you go to the invite link in the description below, it'll also invite you to my Discord server so that you can talk with me about anything, including this podcast or my other content. You can also find me on YouTube, just search for Caleb Dirksen and look for the icon of me as a soldier. And if you want to support my work and get some great rewards all at once, which also includes getting access to my content before anyone else, such as my videos, my podcast episodes, or anything like that, then you can become a patron on patreon.com/Caleb Dirksen. I very much appreciate your support over there. As for this podcast, we are available on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Amazon Music, on Audible, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify. And you can also find us on Anchor by using your Apple or Android device or going on the web at anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion page. If you guys listen to this show on Apple Podcasts or another podcast service, do you want to just go and rate and review the podcast? That would be nice of you so long as it's respectful. And if you were listening to this episode as a video on YouTube, then go ahead and tap that like button on our video and just leave us a little comment with your thoughts on this episode of Hamster and Gretel. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions by sending us an email at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the series and episode title in the subject line. Join us next time, and I'm going to go into episode 6 of Phineas and Ferb, which has Get That Bigfoot Out of My Face and Tree to Get Ready. Tune in next time for the latest episode of the Danville Discussion and all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. And with all that said, thank you again for listening, and until next time, this is Caleb, over and out. This podcast was created strictly and only for entertainment and information purposes. It is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company, Disney Television Animation, or their affiliates. All and any names, images, clips, sounds, or other items related to Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, Hamster and Gretel, and other Disney properties are trademarks and or copyrights of their respective holders. All original content from this podcast is the intellectual property of the Danville Discussion and the host or hosts running the podcast, unless otherwise noted.
Okay, Boomer, no one says mincemeat anymore.